at the Police Federation annual conference in Bournemouth. Let's have a little listen into her.
Your dedication to duty and your sheer hard work, I simply want to say thank you. As Home Secretary, I will never underestimate the importance of the job that you do. Some of the challenges you face are different from before and are changing every day. Fighting serious and organised crime, especially the battle with drug trafficking. Fighting terrorism, the new and biggest policing challenge of the 21st century. And you're facing other challenges which have been around for longer, but are no less difficult and no less important. Disorder and antisocial behaviour blight far too many communities and cause misery for far too many people, and you're on the front line in the fight back. We all know crime is too high, and we know the damage that fear of crime is causing in our communities. And as the incidence of crime breeds fear, so our society begins to break down. How many people walk away from a gang of young people on their street and just assume they're up to no good? How many parents will keep their children away from the local park because they're worried about them being confronted by drug dealers? How many elderly couples hesitate before leaving their homes for fear of being mugged? How many people avoid making eye contact with strangers for fear of how they might react? What do these things say about our society? This is not the Britain we want, and we must fight to change it. We need to mend our broken society and build instead the big society. In the broken society, too many families break down, children are brought up in households where nobody works, and they go to school with little hope of good grades and a better life. In the big society, we tackle these root causes of poverty and criminality. In the broken society, we put up with crime and antisocial behaviour because that's just the way things are. In the big society, we say enough is enough, and we come together to reclaim our communities for the law-abiding majority. In the broken society, people live in fear of criminals. In the big society, criminals will live in fear of the people because there is nowhere for them to hide. Our communities will stand tall because we're all in this together. And you can't be expected to do this on your own. We need to reform our courts, probation services and prisons, and I know that Ken Clarke, the new Justice Secretary, agrees with me. And that's why Nick Herbert has been appointed as Minister of State for Policing and Criminal Justice, working not just in the Home Office, but in the Ministry of Justice too. Looking not just at the criminal justice system processes, but also at issues like rehabilitation to reduce reoffending. And Paul, you said about the number of people who've been ministers in the Home Office over the last few years. I'm very pleased that Nick Herbert is in my Home Office team, because he is somebody who has been in this area, worked in this area over a number of years. And I think, as you found, those delegates who heard him yesterday, he has a commitment to helping you do your job as I do. And I'm also pleased that James Brokenshire has been appointed to the team as well, who has been in the Shadow Home Affairs team. So giving that degree of continuity in the Home Office team. Now, somebody once said, you need to be tough on crime and tough on the causes of crime. And you know, for once he was right. But he just didn't really do it. So we will be tough on the causes of crime. And that's why the new Education Secretary, Michael Gove, is going to set about the most exciting programme of school reform for a generation, so children are given the hope of a better future. That's why the new Work and Pensions Secretary, Ian Duncan-Smith, will pick up our plans for welfare reform to get people into work and lift children out of poverty. And as Home Secretary, make no mistake, I will be tough on crime. Now, I know I'm a new Home Secretary, and I know that many of you don't know me, and I know you want to know what sort of Home Secretary I'm going to be. So let me begin by saying this. I'm not interested in running the police. If I'd wanted to run the police, I'd have done what you all did and joined the police force. That is not the Home Secretary's job. And that's not something that many of my predecessors have understood. They just didn't get it. They reached for what they thought was the lever, but only find a clamp. Tying you down in more and more red tape, issuing central government diktats, inventing more criminal offences, undermining your professional responsibility, destroying your morale, and devaluing your vocation. They treated you as pen pushers, not police officers. They imposed standardised national targets without prejudice for the vastly differing needs of local areas. So the police in a seaside town such as Bournemouth are set the same objectives as those in Brixton. They assessed you against key performance indicators, which rewarded you for recording crime, not cutting crime. They failed to tackle the bureaucracy around charging, which keeps you off the streets. They promoted a one-size-fits-all Whitehall knows best brand of policing that rides roughshod over the experience and professional expertise of local officers. And what I'm sure was most maddening of all, they did spin endless gimmicks and initiatives, marching yobs to cash points, night courts, ASBOs for unborn children, that were, yes, and that were forgotten about as quickly as they became tomorrow's fish and chip paper. So I didn't go into politics to run public services. That's the job of professionals like you. So I'm not going to presume to tell you how to do your job, any more than I'd tell a surgeon how to operate or an engineer how to build a bridge. Professional policing means policing run by you, the professionals, not us, the politicians. So I believe it's time for a whole new approach. And what that approach is, how it will be delivered, and what it means for the job you do is what I now want to focus on. But before I go into the specifics, it's important, I think, that I set out the philosophy underpinning our new approach, and indeed underpinning so many of the changes this new government will undertake in reforming our public services. Our starting point is that public services should serve the public, meeting their needs, responding to what they want, answering directly to them. Of course, in an ideal world, what the public wants from the police is no crime, no violent crime, no homicides, no thefts, no drunken louts. But of course, that's not the world we live in. Most of us live in big cities, sharing scarce space with people with diverse backgrounds and diverse interests. That's the reality of our world, the world in which you have to operate. And that's why we want to change the way the police forces of our country are managed. We want to replace the big government bureaucratic accountability that has grown in recent years, where police officers are forced to answer to politicians through a range of inspections, targets, gimmicks, and performance indicators, with democratic accountability that reflects the fact that not all communities in our country are exactly the same and have the same policing needs, where you are accountable to the people you serve. That way, we can help to build confidence in the system and deliver policing that meets local priorities. And in practice, this means striking a new deal with you, the police service. I want to give the service back its professional responsibility, getting rid of the centralised bureaucracy that wastes money, saps morale, crushes innovation, freeing the men and women of our police forces to do what they're trained to do, want to do, and the public expects them to do, making our society safer. But in return for this new freedom, the police service must accept a transfer of power over policing from Whitehall to communities by giving local people a real say over how their streets are policed. So let me take each of these in turn. And first, looking at professional responsibility. I don't know if you remember that police recruitment campaign a few years ago with people like Lennox Lewis and Simon Weston, saying how they'd struggled to cope with the pressures of being a police officer. It ended with them saying, "I couldn't do it, could you?" You could. That's why you chose this job, and you do. It's why you still do this job. Each one of you has taken an incredibly brave decision to put yourself in harm's way to protect the public. I said it was time to give you the respect you deserve, and that means giving you the responsibility you deserve. It means trusting you. Because if government won't trust you, what kind of message does that send to the